Hello, welcome to the daily drawing. Today we're going to be drawing a sloth. We've picked a baby sloth because they're so cute and I love them and they're adorable. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with the body as usual. So I'm going to draw the body as almost kind of like a egg shape. So it's really big and round right here, and it gets a little bit smaller up here by the neck as we can see. So we're going to draw an egg kind of tilted in like this direction. So to get started with, I'm going to first draw kind of a round shape like this. And this is a good tip if you don't know how to draw an egg shape. This is a great way to do it, is if you draw a round shape first and then you pick the direction that you want the egg to lean towards. And our egg in this particular case is leaning kind of a little bit more to the top, left, right, right corner. Yeah, so I want to kind of aim it in that direction. So if you struggle drawing an egg, draw a circly shape first and then just draw a frowny face on top of that circle, pointing in the direction that you want your egg to go. And this is a great way to draw an egg shape, because then you can just erase that circle on the inside and ta-da, there's a little bit of an egg shape. All right, so now that I have my eggish body, notice that with the way that the sloth is facing, because it's looking towards us, the head is overlapping the neck. So the only parts that really classify as the neck here is this little curve right here, and then this little curve right here. So to draw the head and the neck, the first thing I'm gonna do is draw the head. Now, because this is a baby, the head is actually really big compared to the body here. So if we look and we measure the head is actually just a little bit smaller than what the body is. If I measure it from the side like this, I can feel like 1 and maybe like 2 or 1.5 heads. So it's pretty small. So, or pretty big, sorry. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to draw, it's not a perfect circle. It's more of a ovally shape. So I'm gonna draw kind of like an ovally shape, overlapping about halfway here for the body part. You can draw this a little bit bigger, you can draw it a little bit smaller. If you draw it even bigger, it's going to make it look like a really young sloth. If you draw it a little bit smaller, it will make it look like it's a little bit older. So kind of up to you, or if you're drawing for a cartoony aesthetic or style, definitely drawing it bigger makes it look a little bit more cartoonish because it's a little bit more unrealistic. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase the inside of the head. So now I'm left with the head shape and I have my body shape going out from there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and work on the face, and then I'm going to come back for the legs and the tail and all that stuff. So if I zoom in on the face here, all right, now there is a little bit of an overlap where the arm is covering a little part of the side of the cheek right here, but we're not going to let that bother us too much. All right, now because their faces, this is a front-facing face, so it's very symmetrical. So I have kind of like a line of symmetry that I can draw down here that divides the face in half, and my eyes are kind of lined up with each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first draw very lightly just a little line like this, and then a little line kind of more on the bottom half of the circly shape like this. So that way, this is going to help me line up my face features, so I know my nose and my mouth are going to be on this line and my eyes are going to be somewhere on this line right here. All right, so now that I have my guidelines of where I know that I need to draw my facial features, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the nose. I personally prefer to start with the nose and the mouth before I do the eyes, just because it makes it easier to kind of line everything up. All right, so if I look at my nose shape, we have kind of an ovally shape that has like the nostrils on the inside, kind of almost like a doggish nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here on this line, right below the center line that makes up the eye line. I'm just going to draw like a little ovally shape right down here. I don't want it to be so close that it touches the bottom of the head because I need to save space for the mouth and stuff. But just like a little bitty oval shape. I'm going to erase this guideline here because I don't need it. All right, once you have that little ovally shape, what you can do is on the inside just draw like little smiles like this for like the little holes in their noses. And you don't have to do that. If you want to leave it just an ovally shape and call it done, you can. I'm going to go ahead and shade mine in just because it is very distinctive of this particular sloth breed that they have darker noses. All right, now that I have my ovally shape with my little nostrils, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the mouth. Now, they don't have that kind of like W shape to their mouth. Their mouths are pretty smooth. So if we look, it's definitely wider than the nose. It starts a little bit further out. It makes a very gentle smile, and it's super close to the nose. So it's not really far down like some animals you'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom of the nose. I'm going to go sideways like this, and then put a little dot where I want to stop the corner of my mouth on both sides like this, lining up with the bottom of that nose because that's how far the mouth stretch. So once I have my marker dot in place for both corners of the mouth, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop down and a little smile and connect those two dots like this. That's going to make up my mouth line. After I have my mouth line, there is a little bit of a bottom kind of lip area where it's not really necessarily a lip, it's just part of their muzzle. So, and if you'll notice, this part is darker than the rest of the face, especially around it. So to get that illusion, what I would suggest doing is draw kind of very lightly, draw like another smile underneath that line, and then kind of shade it in. Or if you're choosing to color it later on, you can color it too. And then this color also stretches right there underneath the nose, above the mouth area. So this whole area right here is part of the muzzle, and it's a little bit darker than the rest of the face. So if you want to shade it now, you can, or you can come back and do it later. So if you're choosing to do it later, I would just suggest drawing just like a small smile down here so that you know that that right there is the chin. So you don't have to stretch the chin quite that far out if you're not planning on coloring it, but just a small smile down here to indicate where the bottom of that chin area is will satisfy. All right. Now that we've got that done, the next thing we're going to do is the eyes. So if we go up, here's where the corner of the mouth was. If we go up from the corner of the mouth, it's really close to where we're going to start the eye. The eye's a little bit further in, but pretty close to it. And if you notice, the eyes are very round. There's a little bit of an almond-y shape to them, but I'm just going to keep mine pretty round. You can change them up to whatever shape that you would like. So here's the corner of the mouth. I'm going to go up until I touch this line and put a dot. And then I'm going to go up from this corner of the mouth until I touch that line and put a little dot. Oh gosh, that looks kind of creepy. All right, so to make it less creepy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of small-ish eyes. If you want to do bigger eyes to make it look more cartoony or kind of cutesy and stuff, feel free to do bigger eyes. All I'm doing here is I'm doing a frowny face followed up by a smiley face to make it very round. You can make these perfect circles if you want to, or you can make them kind of oblong. That's entirely up to you. Whenever you have the shape that you're satisfied with, I suggest leave a little highlight and then fill in the rest like this. And of course, if you want to do like a pupil and iris and all that, feel free to. I'm just going to keep it pretty simple though. All right, so now that I have my sloth's eyes, something that's pretty distinctive of this particular type of sloth is they have like a brown around it with the little brown streak that goes off to the side. You can see it on this side too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very lightly draw like a little shape around the eyes like this, almost like you would if it was a panda. And then I'm just going to draw like a little frown line coming down like this. That way I know that I'm going to make this part right here a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark out my fur pattern before I get too much further. That way, whenever I get back to it, I don't forget that that's a thing. All right, so I got one more thing that I'm going to add on the head before I move on. And that's going to be, if you look here, you can kind of see that it makes to where it goes down and then it curves back up for the fluffy fur. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very loosely, first erase this guideline because I don't need it anymore. I'm just going to very loosely kind of draw a little smile, kind of connecting the eyes together. And that way I know that this is where you're going to have that longer, denser fur, and this right here is going to be kind of like the thinner, tinier fur. And so now I have my face all marked out and mapped out, so I know what my plan is for it later. All right, so now I can move on to the arms. Their arms are massive, like they're really big. I think their arms are actually, oh wow, they're longer than their body, which is like super unusual for an animal. All right, so in order to draw these legs, what I'm going to do, I guess we probably need to connect the neck. First, go to the head and then just do a little bit of a curve to connect the neck here. And then this one, we don't have to really connect it because the neck is being overlapped by the head. But right here, we do see a little bit of a curve to connect the neck to the body. All right, sorry about that. All right, so now what we're going to do is draw the arms. What I would suggest doing first, even though we don't really see it, excuse me, a circle thing, I would suggest draw like a little bit of a curve down here so we can see that shoulder bump. So what I'm going to do is right here where the neck ended, so this right here is my neck. At the end of the neck, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a smile like this for the start of the arm. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very lightly draw a little circle-y thing. That way I know where to start and stop my arm. So I know that my arm needs to come back to this point and it needs to come back to this point at some point. All right, so now if I look at the arm shape, it's like a really exaggerated greater than or less than sign. Here's the center point of it, and then it goes up in kind of a diagonal line, and then it goes out in a diagonal line connecting to the shoulder. And also, if you'll notice, that point is pretty close to the cheek where that brown patch is. So I'm actually going to go to this brown patch. I'm going to put a little dot right there. Remember how I said earlier that the cheek is getting overlapped by the arm? That's where this is going to go kind of in front of it a little bit. So it's okay if you scoot that dot even closer to the inside of the face if you want to. So I'm going to put mine right here instead. That way I do get a little bit of that overlap on the face. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, starting at this dot, I'm going to do a slight diagonal line until it touches here. And you can make it overlap the face a little bit more or a little less. That kind of depends on how you want your picture to look. And then after I've reached that dot, then I'm going to change directions so it's going up a little bit more. Now, if I look at it and compare it to the top of the head, it goes a little bit higher than the top of the head. So I want it to go a little bit higher than the top of the head here, which I have. And then whenever I get to the top, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a frown to cap it off, okay? So after I have my shoulder, my elbow, this right here is the wrist. Now we don't see the toes on this side because they're on the other side of the branch. We will see it on this foot, but this foot we don't see those toes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and very lightly, because I will have to erase parts of it for this foot, I'm going to just bring it back, kind of following with a parallel line to this line until I get across from the elbow. Once I get across from the elbow, then I'm just going to bring it back to this circle right here, like this. So now I have kind of like my weird looking sock arm, which works out just fine. If you want to go ahead and erase any lines on the inside, feel free to. So now I just have my kind of like a little loose arm coming up. It looks a little weird now, but don't worry, we'll fix it up later. All right, so I already have my belly drawn because of my circle of my body, so I don't have to worry about drawing that. If we look here, this is like a really, really weird shape for the back leg. We have kind of an oval for the thigh that stretches up pretty high, and then we have the foot curving around a branch. So at this point, what I would suggest doing, go ahead and draw the tree branch. So now that we know that this is where the arm is going to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side of this little frowny face that we have here. I'm just going to draw going upwards. It doesn't have to be in any particular direction, just a little tree branch. And then in order to make it look more branch-like, I'm going to go down a little bit and then just kind of mimic that same motion going upwards and off the page, or however far that you want it to go. Now after that, I'm going to go ahead and continue it on the other side. And then in this particular picture, it goes out kind of flat like this. So that's the direction that I'm going to draw it in. Feel free to change up the direction though, if you would like. All right, and I'm not worried about adding like all the like bumps and stuff on the tree branch. I can come back and do that later if I want to. All right, now that I have the branch, that makes it so much easier for me to figure out where to put the body for the rest of the feet and stuff. All right, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do this a little backwards than normal. I'm going to start off with the foot and then we'll work my way down to the thigh. So here we can see that the foot starts on the branch and then it curves in front of that front leg that we drew, and then it comes down just a tiny ways. So it's just an exaggerated frowny face. So I'm going to start that frowny face right here on the branch, not too far away from this, but you don't want it to be like way over here, otherwise you're going to have like a massive foot. So about yay far, and then I'm just going to do like a little frown, go into this other leg like this, and then I'm going to curve it down like this. So it's kind of like you're drawing just a really stretched out frowny face. And notice that I kind of stop whenever I touch the body. That's a good general rule of thumb. That way you don't end up making your foot too long. Now, if your foot does look really long at this point, it's okay to stop before you hit the body. So you don't have to go all the way to the body if you feel like that looks too long. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add a very exaggerated kind of backwards C shape so that it looks like it's gripping the branch. So to do that, I'm going to start on the top of the branch. Then I'm just going to draw a C like this until it touches the bottom of the branch, and then erase the inside of that foot area. Now, I don't know if that's a claw or not. Oh yeah, we can kind of see a little bit of a claw right here that's holding onto that branch. So if you would like, right here where we have that little awkward point, if you want to just draw a little parenthesis right here, and that'll make it feel more like the claw that is gripping onto it. And I think you can kind of see it right here too. So we can do the same kind of thing over here. Just draw like a little parenthesis. That way it makes it look and feel as though the claw is gripping onto the other side of the branch. All right. Now that we have that done, now we just have to do the thigh area. So here we can see that the thigh, here's where we just stopped right here for the corner of that foot. The thigh kind of almost follows the same angle that this front leg did, except we have a little bit of a wonk right here, and then it curves back down to the belly. So we have it to where we're going to go parenthesis, and then we're going to curve it in the opposite parenthesis, and then curve it back down. So it's just like a little wiggly line. If you want to simplify that, you can just do it as a simple one line for a little bit of a smoother look for the thigh. So that's up to you if you want to do it super detailed. So I'm going to start off with a smooth one. So I'm going to start right here where I stopped my foot. I'm going to draw a slight parenthesis, curve it down until it almost touches the bottom of the body, but don't quite touch it there. So here's if you want to draw it smooth, that's what that would look like. If you want to draw it a little bit more lumpy, all you'd have to do is just add a little bit of a wonk in here so that you add a little bit of a wiggly line. And that just makes it look a little bit more irregular, and that'll make it feel a little bit more like an actual sloth, but you can do it either way. All right, now the back of the leg, if you see right here, it's a little hard to see because there's so much fur going on, but here's the corner of the foot where the tree branch is, It's going to kind of make a greater than or less than sign where it goes out and then it drops back down. This is kind of their ankle area. So to do that, I'm just going to extend this out just a little bit and then curve it down. So here's the corner of my greater than or less than sign. Here's the top, it curves down, and then I'm just going to curve it all the way down until it touches the bottom of the body. So that right there is going to be the back leg. So now we can already start seeing how this is feeling a little bit more sloth-like, which is good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do, since we're back here anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do the other leg and the tail, and then we'll finish it up with this front leg up here. All right, so for this back leg, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw the claws up here, or sorry, I'm going to draw the foot part and then draw the claws after that. So notice that it's, okay, so if I go up from the ankle like this, that's where we're going to start that foot, okay? So I'm going to go up from the ankle until I get on the opposite side of that branch. You can put a little marker dot as I've done here if you want. And then I'm just going to do a little frown very lightly because I am going to have to erase part of that to get those claws until it gets to the other side. And then what I'm going to do before I jump up to the claws, I'm going to jump over to the other side of the branch. And then I'm just going to carry this down until I almost touch the other side of the body. We want to leave a space for the tail to come out right here. So I'm not going to fully touch it, but I'm going to get pretty close to it like this. All right. Now for the tail part, we can see that their tails make kind of like a really exaggerated greater than or less than sign that's very curvy at the bottom. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start a little bit inwards on the thigh. I don't want to start it right here, otherwise it might look a little awkward. So I'm going to start a little bit more on the inside of the thigh. I'm going to curve down and then curve back up until it touches the body like this. And that'll give us our little slothy tail. I didn't know that sloths even had tails until I did research for this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Some of them have like really long fluffy tails. And I find that so weird because I never knew that. All right. So now what I'm going to do for these claws is I'm just going to start with the inner claw first because that overlaps the others. I'm just going to draw a frowny face like this. I'm going to keep my pencil down. I'm going to slowly bring that frowny face back until it touches back on the other side. So it's kind of like I'm drawing like a jumping fish or like a teardrop that is tilting sideways. After I finish that first claw, I'm going to start the second claw on the top of the first one that I just did. Do a little bit of a frowny face. It's okay if it goes outside of the foot. Bring it down and then bring it back up. So all I'm doing is I'm just going like this and then like this. And then if you add that third one, just do it one more time. So that's what I'm going to do down here. So just add that third claw and bring it back up. And if you have any lines on the inside that bother you and you want to erase them, feel free to get rid of them. Okay, one more leg. Here we go. All right, so up here, we can see that it starts, it seems weird, but just trust me, okay? It's going to start on the top of the wrist right here. So it's not on the corner of the branch exactly. It's a little bit further inward. So start on the top of the wrist. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to follow the tree branch a short distance. And then I'm going to start turning that into a frowny face, okay? So I'm going to frown that down until it touches the branch, all right? So slight diagonal line, and then turn that diagonal line into a frown. After you've after you've turned it into a frown, jump over to the other side like this, and then continue it on and curve it until it touches back on the other leg like this, so that we have a good size arm connecting it back to the other side of the body. All right, once we have that, we can see the hand actually folds down. So what I would suggest doing is draw a little bit of a smile on the top of this hand like this before you draw the claws. And then you can draw your 3 claws. So kind of similar to what we did before. I'm going to actually erase the inside here to make it easier for me to draw. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm just going to start off with a frown and then curve it down into a little spike. And you can make these longer, you can make them shorter. If you're going for more of kind of like a cutesy aesthetic, you can make them shorter and less pointy. And that'll make it not look so like, I don't know, like creepy, I guess. I don't know, their toes are like super long. But I think this looks fine. So now that we have the basic shapes done, I would suggest go ahead and erase any lines that you don't need. So here I'm erasing the inside of the leg here, and that's pretty much it. I've already erased as I went for the other parts. All right, now before I call this done, I am going to add a little bit of texture. If you want your sloth to be smooth, you can actually call it done right there. You don't have to add texture if you don't want to, but especially since they are such fluffy creatures, I want to add texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Z line. This little line right here where we go back and forth. It's kind of like you're drawing like V's and W's, except you're making them curvy and not perfect. I'm going to add those on the backs of the legs and maybe a little bit up here on the face. I'm also going to incorporate some of these C's and backward C's, just give it a little bit more texture. So you'll see me going like this. It'll look like I'm going for a Z line. And then every now and then I might add a couple of those C shapes, and then I'll go back into a Z line. This just really breaks up the texture and makes it look nice. All right. So I'm going to start off with the back of the leg. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a Z line to the back of the leg here. And if you want to, and what I would suggest doing, just make it look nicer, kind of lightly erase it so that you can still see it, and then go back on top of it with those textures. Really paying attention to what direction that the fur is going, because if you draw it kind of like facing upwards when it's supposed to be facing down, it might look as though like the wind is blowing the poor thing's like fur like all over the place, and that might be like a little worrisome for the poor little sloth. So I'm gonna add a little bit of fur texture to the tail, a little bit to the feet. Oh, I love the sloths, they're so cute. Oh my gosh. Okay, a little bit to the sides of the head. I'm gonna add a little bit on the inside of the forehead. I'm just gonna add a couple lines, kind of sunbursting out from the center of the head. We can kind of see what I mean by there. Here we can see like the fur is kind of going out in different directions. That's what I mean by sunbursting. And it just makes it have a nice little texture. And some of those areas that might benefit from having a little bit more texture. Now, I'm not adding a whole lot of texture underneath like the mouth area or anything, because otherwise I feel like that might take it a little overboard. And I don't want to like overgo on the texture and stuff. So just a little bit here and there works out pretty nicely. A lot of times adding it on the edges of the legs work pretty nicely. And also a little bit on the belly area here. I noticed that the sloth has longer fur right here, kind of curving down. So I'm going to add a little bit inside the belly just to give us a little bit more fur texture. Maybe it's because he's got like a little wrinkle going on there or something. And that might help out. All right, so if you're keeping it kind of cartoony but still a little bit fluffy, I wouldn't go for too many textures. But if you are making it a little bit more realistic, just especially since we're using a reference here, I'm just going to like vaguely look at the reference and add some more textures, especially since they have so many different directions that their fur are going. So all I'm doing is I'm just looking at the picture and I'm adding some of those C shapes and little diagonal lines that make it easy to kind of tell the direction that the fur is going. So especially anywhere that I see that the fur changes directions, or in an area that is like super shady, then I want to add a little bit of a difference in fur direction and texture, just so that we can kind of better understand the creature that we are drawing. All right, so I think that looks pretty well textured. You can definitely go a little bit more fluffy than that if you want to, but I'm pretty satisfied with that. So I'm just going to finish this up with a little bit of shading. So I already have my markings on my face drawn, so I'm just going to very lightly holding my pencil to the side so that I'm shading with kind of more of the edge of the pencil and not the tip of the pencil. Oh, whoops, he doesn't have a mask. That's just silly. All right, so shading a little bit around the face, maybe making that nose just a little bit darker so it stands out more. A little bit darker on this muzzle area. And then after that, I'm just going to shade in the parts that I think the light wouldn't be reaching as much, or the parts that I just want to pop more. You can even shade like the tree branch if you want to kind of help it have a little bit more dimension, especially in the area that separates out the legs and the belly. It's really helpful to add some shading there just to kind of help push the forward legs a little bit more forward and just make it look a little bit more 3D, which always looks pretty nice in a drawing. But as I've said before, like, you don't have to do all these realistic things. If you prefer to do things more cartoony, there's nothing wrong with that. I love doing cartoony stuff, but I just really like how animals look, and I love kind of trying to portray them in a fun and unique way. So but yeah, so you can color this if you want to. I've seen some kids color like a little pink and polka dotted sloths, which look really cute. So, all right, there we go. So there's the sloth. I hope you had fun. They're really adorable creatures. They're really cute. And I really enjoyed drawing them with you guys. So have a good day. All right, bye.